So yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. We can't run away from this. This is coming one way or another. Either we're fluid and adapt to the change in a peaceful way, or it just takes us down in a painful, horrific way. I just finished a boxing class and I went to get ice cream straight away. It's a perfect day, so I couldn't help myself. So I wanted to discuss and ask what other people think of this catastrophic situation that we are being told that we are in. So I'm sure you guys have heard of the lack of children being born, right? That it seems around the world, people are just not having enough kids. And a long time ago, we knew this, from certain countries like Japan, and, then the West. And now it seems like in India and even in Africa, people are just not having enough kids. You hear a lot of people saying, good, this is where we are. Mostly it's women who I have heard say, good, that's it, you guys either change your ways or women stop having kids. And then you hear other people saying this is catastrophic and we have to have kids. There are other people saying women should go back to the kitchen, in a sense, like they should not work, they should be focused on having kids, and they're trying to promote and push for women to have kids. And the thing is that this issue is way deeper than women not having kids, men not having kids. It's even deeper than housing being expensive, food, the chaos that's happening in the world, because some young people, young adults, say that they don't see a future, so why would they want to have kids? When they cannot afford housing, their career, their school doesn't go anywhere, there's no jobs, there's so much violence, global warming, plastic pollution, microplastic, like all of these things are not really showing a bright future. The issue is much deeper than that even. Although those are true, I think the issue is deeper, and I'm wondering what you guys think. Any animal species in nature will not have kids when they are in a dangerous environment. All species have specific times and places where they will go to, migrate to have kids. Except humans, right? Humans will have kids anywhere, in the middle of a war, not because they want to, due to forced situations. So, something that started to make me think about these 2 points that I find interesting and a massive telling what we should be doing and what we have done. One of them, I think, is as soon as the conversation on a low birth rate pops up, the first thing that I hear is women are not having enough kids. They start to look at why women are not having kids. Is what they talk about, right? And then they start looking at, well, if you don't have kids by the age of 20, by the age of 32 or 30, your chances of having kids go down 50%, and then they go down as you get older and older, right? The chances of having kids by when you're 40 or 50, 50 years too late, but they decrease. Kind of incentivizing that a woman should have kids earlier, because if she doesn't have them by the age of 30, she's most likely not going to have them, or she might just have one, and it's just going to be harder, period. I never have yet heard in the conversation of low birth rate on why men are not having kids. Because if women are not having kids, neither are men, right? You need both of them to have a kid. So then you say, well, women are the gatekeepers of the womb. If a woman is on birth control, or if she doesn't want to have kids, no matter what the guy wants, there's not going to be a kid. You could say that. You could also say, if a man doesn't want to have a kid, you're not going to have kids. Although, this seems to be a little bit more accidents that way, where a man doesn't want to have kids and he ends up with a kid because everybody wants to have sex. But I think the assumption is that women inherently are not wanting to have kids, rather than the environment is making women not want to have kids. It isn't that they want to just focus on career. It is that in the system we have created that prioritizes money, we don't have a chance to have a kid in the way it should be had, with a support system.
Did you know that for 95% of human history, the ratio of caregivers to babies was 10 to 1? 10 caregivers for one baby, because we evolved to live in groups and care for babies and children collectively, until agriculture, capitalism, and industrialization messed it all up. Let that sink in.
Not only that, men are not taught to parent. They are taught to be a father. There's a difference between being a father and parent. Being a father, you procreate, you inseminate, and then the mother gets pregnant, and then you're not that involved. Being a parent is that you are involved in the caring of the child. So the burden of kids falls on solemnly on the women, for the most part, right? That's not very encouraging, because there's nothing natural about one person taking care of children. Nothing natural about that, whether it's a woman or a man. So I find it interesting that the conversation always goes to why women are not wanting to have kids. Maybe we could ask, why aren't men inspiring women to have kids? Because I think a lot of women, majority of women, want to have kids at some point in their life. Majority. Things happen in life that you either don't want to anymore, due to the way the world is going, due to the people you meet, due to whatever. So that's the first part. Why are we not asking men? Why aren't men having enough kids? Why aren't men creating spaces where women can feel inspired to have kids? That's one side. But that's not even really the true problem. The problem is the system we have built. It's not women choosing to not have kids, men choosing to not have kids. The problem is the systems we have built, this capitalist system. that is focused solemnly on growth. And it's not growth of the human spirit, growth of the soul, but growth of power, of a perceived type of power, not internal power, a perceived type of power, of hierarchy that is based on money. And money is just a story that we have all agreed upon to keep it giving value. So it's all an illusion. But the problem is that the system we have built prioritizes growth, unlimited growth. Well, there is a limit because Earth doesn't get bigger, but growth of money and consumption. This system does not support families or children. It's not made for kids. And something that shocked me, that really, really affected me, was when I was listening to this interview. I'll put a couple of clips of it, where many of the tragedies of not having enough kids is that societies will collapse. And societies, meaning infrastructures like daycares, schools, kid products, who takes care of the elderly? I mean, money. In the end, it will become young adults. They will not have enough young adults to sustain the elders.
Else in society, from how we've set up our social care, our pension systems, our healthcare systems, will whittle away. And that's because we need people, we need workers to pay for those. So yeah, it comes back to economics. And some people don't like that. Some people then twist that deliberately, I'm sure, that, oh, so this is just about money. This is just about supporting the elderly, supporting.
Are children just a product to keep this monster alive, to keep these corporations going? We are looking at people and children and families as a business, as the product that keeps the business going, not as animals, as a community, as members of community that keep the species going, but as numbers of systems, as products of systems. And that these products go, so will the systems. And then I was thinking, okay, well, when we lived as hunting-gatherers, if there was less children, the community might shrink. When there's more children, the community expands. But nothing would crumble. You could say, sure, if there's 0 kids born for a certain amount of time, well, you cease to exist. Yes, obviously. But systems didn't break. The community still lived, hunted, gathered, connected, enjoyed nature, taught, passed down education, passed down cultures. Still stayed the same. Right? It would just shrink or expand. However, we have monetized, we have actually systematized and monetized everything to do with community, with relations. We have monetized everything to the point that if there is a mass population shrinkage, all of those systems will crumble. But those are just financial systems. They're corporations. And so now they're freaking out, right? Like, it's going to be horrible. Well, why can't we prepare for it? Why can't we shrink? Why can't we slow down and start focusing on families? Why don't we focus on the well-being of people, to encourage families. And the well-being of people is not just not letting women work, so they're forced to be dependent on men. That's not going to work, because that's going to take us to the exact same places we are right now. That's where we came from. And that didn't take us anywhere good. It's taking us now to people saying, fuck it. What we need is well-being. It's connecting back to nature. What we need is community. The destruction of the family unit was not feminism, or I don't know what else is blamed on. Maybe things are getting too expensive. The destruction of the family unit was when we disconnected from nature and destroyed communities. Communities are the family unit. It is the community that is the family. No parent, one or two parents, are supposed to be raising a family on their own. That's too much stress. It's too much for two people, and let alone one person. And the idea of having women not allowed to work so they have to depend on a man is really dangerous. For one, for the most part, people cannot afford to have a family in one income. That's the first thing. Second, if there is a separation, whether one wants it or not, like whether the woman wants it or the man wants it, what happens when there's a separation? Who takes care of the mother, the kids? If the father disappears, again, what happens to the mother and the kids? This is a system that we have already lived. We don't need to live that again. What we need is a new system. It's a new system that focuses truly on kids. I don't find cities to be built for kids or mothers, single moms. I mean, I guess parents. Cities are not built for parents. None of the infrastructures and the systems that we have in the modern world are made for families. They are made for businesses. I thought it was very interesting when some people would tell me that they supported Trump as a president because he was a businessman. And I thought, how strange. Do you really want a businessman to run a country? I don't want a country to be run like a business, because it isn't a business. It requires humanity. It's a humane energy, humane way that needs to be run. Nature is not there to be exploited. It's there to be sustained with. It's there to be working with. Something, again, that I used to find so strange when people will be like, oh, I want land so I can exploit it. I'm like, how offensive to exploit nature. We need to work with nature. But truly, I find it fascinating that we're so obsessively focused on how we're having less kids to support the system that we have. Maybe the system that we have is not working for a reason. And we're not having kids for a reason. If this happens in the animal kingdom, where animals stop having kids or don't have kids when they're not in the right situation, maybe us humans are not in the right situation to have kids. It seems like an impossible task for humanity collectively shift their ways and do an internal growth to change the system completely. It seems impossible. It seems like it's only going to happen with something drastic, like some kind of, destruction, like AI takes over, the super agent finally comes, takes over, and then...
What if your next child wasn't born in a hospital but inside a machine?
It was pure sensational misinformation. Now, artificial womb technology is real. Scientists are exploring it to help premature babies. A full pregnancy robot? That's still pure science fiction. So here's my question. If this technology ever became reality, would you support it?
To me, that seems like only bad things are coming from that. Only bad things. Like, are you supposed to be a couple and you get a robot that carries the baby for you so you don't have to birth the baby? That's already like a triple disconnection with nature. We already have a massive disconnection from not spending our time outside, from not knowing when the food comes from. And now we're not even going to have our own babies. Not only that, are we going to be pumping babies because we don't have enough? And so who's going to be parenting these babies? And then what's going to happen to all these babies? Are they going to be put to like, the thing I can think of is like slavery. Like, is it single people? Like, are men supposedly, because a lot of men apparently are asking to want to have babies now and women are not wanting, which I don't believe it. I think men, for the most part, want to be a father, but don't understand what it means to be a parent, right? The image of the father. But are you going to have a bunch of single parents? Like, why are we making a robot that can incubate a baby? All that money that is used in AI should be used on how do we shrink? How do we just slow down? And so how do we individuals, how do we prepare for this? That's one question. How do you prepare for it? Right? For all this crisis of like, not enough babies are born while AI is coming. How do we prepare? I think slowing down the system is one way. And we, the people, as a mass, have the power to slow down the system by shopping less, upgrading your technology slower. Like, just don't, get a phone and keep it for a certain amount of time. Like, keep it longer. Just stop consuming. Stop consuming. And I think we should make nature our religion. Nature should be our religion, our new gods. We have gone from, we used to worship nature back in the hunting-gatherer times. There are tribes, ancient tribes that, had the spirits of nature. So seems like that's more ancient than any other religion. Then you had the multiple gods. Then you get, Christian gods and the monotheism religions that became extremely powerful. And then the new gods, new age gods, money, internet, consumerism. These are the new age gods. And now we're moving towards the ultimate god, which is AI, social media, AI, the agent, the super intelligence. I think nature should be our next god. That's who we should worship, because in the end, that's what keeps us alive. Our basic needs, food, water, oxygen, safety. Nature has them all. So can we get back to a time where we worship nature and community and slow down this insanity? And I think if it's happening that humans are not having kids, then that's for a reason. So instead of putting a Band-Aid on it and forcing children, let's slow down the systems. Maybe it's easy for me to say because I'm not a massive consumer and I don't live beyond my means and I don't live beyond what I need. And someone who has millions of billions of dollars to telling them to shrink, it must be hard, but that's just not truly hard. That's a perceived hard. That's a hardness of the ego. That's just not wanting to let go of the ego. But anyways, what do you guys think? I'm curious. I feel like, for the most part, the way they're seeing children in this catastrophic event coming is that they're seeing them as products that can keep the current system alive. not as seeing the humanity and the soul of individuals. You know, it's really sad. It's a really sad situation we're in. It's a really sad situation we're in because there's nothing natural about the system that we have made. There's nothing healthy or natural about these societies. Not only that, the way we are destroying the environment and polluting everything, sound pollution, light pollution, plastic pollution, you know, it's really sad.
Okay, so we as humans, we tend to force fit our issues into a linear narrative with a neat beginning and an end. But what we're talking about here is civilizational, okay? Our civilization is called the post-industrial civilization. It's roughly 270 years old, and it's made up of a befuddling array of complex systems, only some of which I'll draw out here today. So we have the climate system and we have the biodiversity system, which feed into the water and the food systems, which in turn cascade into a bunch of other systems. So the trade routes system, the tariff system, what else have we got there? The geopolitics system, and of course the global financial system. And these are all connected, interconnected. They domino in on each other. They're interdependent on each other. And you've also got a few AI gremlins running around the place. Now, this behemoth, which is overwhelming in itself, sits atop another complex system. And that's the fossil fuel system, which huffs and puffs to push the whole thing forward. And it's in turn fanned by the more growth imperative. All right, so it's very Dr. Seuss-ish, right? Now, that whole pile-up would not operate without those two things, okay? An endless supply of fossil fuels as well as the infinite growth imperative. And without it, it's a bit like when you stop pedaling on a bike, right? The whole thing comes undone. And when I explained this to my friend Jess the other day, who's somewhere in the audience here today, she said 2 words: stupid and fragile. And that pretty much sums things up.
And now there's a collapse coming because there are not enough kids being born. But at the same time, the system is not made for having kids. Not only is the system itself not made for having kids, where things are too expensive, there's no jobs. I mean, jobs are declining. It's not safe. There's so many wars. There's so much violence. But on top of that, we don't have the same level of health. The microplastic is making people infertile. The air quality affects as well your fertility. So it's sad because we have created a system that without kids, it collapses into the way they make it sound is just full destruction. Like it's just gonna be really bad. Like an existential threat. And yet we're not doing anything to change the system to create an environment for families. And not just for families, but to be able to get pregnant, to be able to rise the birth rates. Like fertility, both men and women are both declining in fertility. And this is also not just because of pollution in all kinds of levels, but diet, exercise, obesity makes people infertile. You don't see the system changing diet and making people more healthy and getting rid of all the fast food and teaching kids how to eat healthy, how to exercise, how to be a healthy human being. You don't see the corporations doing that, but they want you to have more kids so the corporations can stay alive. Right? That's the irony of it all. Elon Musk is saying that it's an existential threat that people are not having kids. What is he doing about fighting for health? You know, for free daycare, for affordable housing, for healthy eating. He's not doing anything. They're talking about women not working, but that's not going to help it. That's not the problem. The problem is the entire system. And I think we should be preparing, as societies and countries should be thinking of how we can shrink. You know, we have gotten big enough. We can slow down. We can slow down before we self-implode. But that's not going to happen until there is an existential threat, or actually worse, not a threat, but until something terrible happens. Because humans don't seem to change until they hit rock bottom. Do we have to hit rock bottom as a species before we change this corrupted system that we are in? It's almost like at this point we need some kind of anarchy, you know, like end it all, because they are viewing people and children as numbers to keep their growth going. I mean, the fact that a country is measured, its success is measured as the GDP is a growth. So if a country grows, that is success. If it doesn't, that's not success, which is insane, because the earth only has a limited amount of space and resources. So the whole system is wrong. How are we going to deal with this? And we cannot be forcing people to do things they don't want. We need to inspire. Inspire through authentic and honest, way. Not through brainwashing people into another fucking narrative. Let's connect back to nature. Anyways, I think it's quite ironic, and I feel like we have enough technology and enough knowledge right now that we could figure out a way to shrink and to stay sustainable in a peaceful and giving way. And yes, the rich will not get richer. But come on, we're sick of that. We're bored. Fuck. Like, we're getting growth fatigue and consumption fatigue and knowledge fatigue and inspiration fatigue, information fatigue. Like, the humans are just stopping. Stop. We're stopping procreation and population, and like, there's a reason for it. We are not separate from nature. As much as we have disconnected from it, we still are part of nature. And if it is something that we're doing wrong, organically, what's going to happen is just we're going to crumble. So, what do you guys think about this? That the people who fear the fall of these infrastructures are seeing how do we keep the infrastructures going, rather than how do we change the system to adapt to what is happening to populations. I say we shrink. I say we slow down everything. We slow down consumption. We slow down production. We just slow down and start focusing on how can we support and teach people about well-being, about health, about community, about giving, moving towards egalitarianism. I know a lot of people are going to hate that, but there is evidence that when we were hunting-gatherers for about 200,000 years, we were egalitarian communities. That changed after population got almost eradicated and resources dried out. But for 95% of human existence, we have been egalitarian. We have been just more equal communities that we work together, not these power structures of hierarchy, with a hierarchy system. That's only been about 5% of human existence. So can we go back to more egalitarian societies? Isn't that a crazy idea? We can't run away from this. This is coming, one way or another. Either we're fluid and adapt to the change in a peaceful way, or it just takes us down in a painful, horrific way. So yeah, I'm curious what you guys think.